Hello, you're watching World Talks on TVP World. My name is Sasha Farba. This week, President Xi Jinping hosted leaders from more than 20 countries at the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit in Tianjin, China, including Russia's Vladimir Putin and India's Narendra Modi. At the summit, China outlined plans for a new development bank and announced AI and lunar research cooperation for SCO members as part of a broader push toward a so-called New World Order. To help us understand the implications, we're joined now in the studio by Tomasz Obremski, a resident fellow at the Casimir Pulaski Foundation. Thanks so much for coming by. Welcome.
Good morning.
Let's start. There's a bilateral going on today. It's between Xi Jinping of China and Vladimir Putin. Now, obviously, the optics here are important. They've already said here, Putin is, I'm quoting here, relations are at an unprecedented level between these countries. China acknowledged that they've withstood the pressures of the international order. What do we make of this, and what does this mean for the rest of the world, quite frankly?
Well, there are many bilaterals during this week in China, but indeed China has withstood the pressure from the West, which can be marked by the recent shipment of an LNG ship from Russia to China, where every single bit of metal and every single component was heavily sanctioned by the US, by Western sanctions. And despite that, China has still imported this oil, so it shows that it's not afraid of the sanctions, it's not afraid of the secondary sanctions, and it's ready to import Russian hydrocarbons to fuel its big economy that is hungry for Russian gas. So Russia wants to keep these investments flowing, keeps exporting the energy. We have right now secondary sanctions on India, which keeps importing Russian crude, but still faces the tariffs that may impact Russian overall situation. And since the war in Ukraine is a war of attrition, every single push that gives some kind of a breathing space for Russian economy is highly desirable.
I mean, it was hoped that China would be that pressure point on Putin, that it would, let's say, not bow, but let's say be useful in making sure that Putin stops his aggressive tactics. When we see a display like this, especially images of Narendra Modi next to Xi Jinping, next to Putin, smiles and sunshine, it doesn't appear that way. Or is there something else? Is that just the optics? Like, what's our takeaway from this major meeting?
From our Polish perspective, I think those meetings are of extreme significance. And of course, we are focused on Euro affairs. Tomorrow, Karol Nawrocki visits the White House. But maybe it's not something that we'll learn immediately, but conclusions from such talks can be of extreme significance for the rest of the world, and we should not underestimate that the largest countries in the world, in terms of the land, in terms of population, in terms of economy, are developing alternative world order, as they say. Like many world leaders that are currently in China, when before their departure, they were saying that the world order needs to be redefined towards more multipolar, multilateral sometimes angle to fight back the unilateral approach of Donald Trump that is highly unpredictable, highly one-sided, and highly unfair from the perspective of the rest of the world.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's also an American system that has really been established in this, if we call it world order, also very much, I mean, you're saying one thing about, okay, we have to change the world order. I mean, let's talk what that really means, intangibles. That's often connected with money. I think this is also quite interesting. Get your point on this. China's pledged $280 million in grants, $1.4 billion in loans to SCO countries. Also, I mean, they've always talked about this. I'm curious your idea. Is this really going to move the needle? I mean, we still have things like the World Bank, we have the United Nations, we have other established entities, but this, economically, is this going to sway certain countries? Is this going to be that new world order? Will this be enough?
It's not going to happen overnight. Shanghai Cooperation Organization was established in 2003 in a very informal way, and still yet gradually it has progressed. It was gaining the significance. So we can say about BRICS. I'm not saying that the world order will change in China overnight during this week, but the foundation for this new world order are being laid, are being discussed. Like for sure, the UN system needs to be redefined. Many countries are complaining about UN Security Council system, that the world is larger than just 5 states that are permanent members. There are issues related to the development, international economic development policy, that the International Development Bank is not enough. We have Belt and Road initiatives that very often goes through the countries of Shanghai Cooperation Organizations, through countries of Central Asia. So we don't hear much of alternative proposals, but we know that those alternative proposals are being discussed and are gaining significance, because we cannot underestimate that those are all the countries that their combined power is 25% of the world population, 40% of the world economics. Like those numbers matter, and they should raise our eyebrows.
Yeah. Also raising eyebrows. I mean, Putin spoke of a new security system, Eurasia. I mean, he's keen to show, as we've said and seen before, these kind of cooperative ventures, military alliances. But how significant are they? What's the capacity? How much interoperability? Are they in any way close to what NATO can provide? Should they be taken seriously? What's your take on what he said?
No, not in terms of the military cooperation. Not in this. Let's say, for example, for us, let me frame it this way. Like for us, NATO is all about security guarantees. So I don't think Shanghai Cooperation Organization can mirror such treaty that defines the common security understanding. But between China and Russia, we have a very big, very significant trade of at least dual use products. China has still apparently did not cross the red line of Europe to send military products, but those dual use are problematic for us. And still Russia sort of makes the rest of the world sensitive towards its own sensitivity. It's constantly repeating that the root causes, so-called the root causes of the conflict, have to be addressed. That the war did not start in 2022. It was a response to the Maidan crisis in 2014, illegal regime change in Ukraine 8 years before. And this September, this month, we're going to have UNGA, United Nations General Assembly in New York. And I think we're going to be again surprised by the growing number of countries that silently or not silently support Russian perspective on this conflict. So don't focus too much on interoperability that mirrors NATO structures, but more on the common understanding of the root causes and the sort of international and historical fairness that Russia presents, and that is absolutely lethal for us.
Yeah, and Tomasz, you mentioned an interesting point there, the root causes of the war. I mean, that's a narrative Putin keeps pushing, the Kremlin keeps pushing. It's getting louder once again. I mean, Putin has ruled out meeting with Zelensky. But at the same time, if we look at the military display now, this will happen tomorrow in Beijing, large victory parade, end of the Second World War. But when we have these claims as well, when Putin is now next to Xi Jinping, how much does that endanger Ukraine's cause, and how much is Xi Jinping listening to this, and how does that impact what China does vis-a-vis Ukraine?
Well, the presence of Putin at the military parade alongside Xi Jinping, but also alongside Kim Jong-un, shows that those are not only economic or political allies, those are also military allies. And this military aspect of the alliance is particularly dangerous for Ukraine. North Korean missiles, North Korean troops already proved to be very useful for Russia in the front. Without them, Russia would grind in the front line even more. The question is to what extent China is ready to intervene or to help Russia should Russia fail to fulfill its goals or be pushed to the wall by some secondary sanctions or by the development of new defense technologies in Ukraine, like a new long-range missiles purely of Ukrainian production, or long-range drones. So there is still a lot of potential here. We have seen in last month some kind of a rhetorical shift by China that was trying to be at least rhetorically, politically more neutral towards this conflict. But right now, from the words of its minister Wang Yi, of the foreign ministers, it openly says that the defeat of Russia will not be in the interest of China. So there is some kind of a change that should be worried from the perspective of Kiev. That's why also Robert Fico presents his trip to China
He's supposed to be the only EU leader that's going to be in attendance, if he goes tomorrow.
Yes, he's the only EU leader that attends. Viktor Orban does not attend celebrations of the end of the World War II because it was not favorable for Hungary. So here Fico can be in the front line to shine. But he says that this is the big part of the war that celebrate peace, and that the Slovakia's constitution obliged him to be there. And also he's going to meet with Xi Jinping, he's going to meet with Putin, and on Friday he's going to meet with Zelensky in the East Slovakia, showing himself as some kind of a diplomatic frontrunner of Europe. He also said that this visit was consulted with the rest of the partners, maybe not that consulted as communicated that he goes. Foreign Minister has also informed EU High Representative Kaja Kallas, but ability of Slovakia to be here, some kind of an honest broker, is obviously limited.
Right. So we went all the way into Fico as being a very, as you said, very small component of a much bigger picture. But I think lots to analyze and consider what you've said here, with China still playing an important role, but also potentially a worrying role if close to Russia. Look, we'll close it there in terms of all of this. I mean, we have that Victory Day parade that's coming up tomorrow. Still unsure if Fico will show or not, but nevertheless, as you said, the West will look at this, Ukraine will look at this with some interpretation. Look, thank you so much, Tomasz Obremski there, fellow from Casimir Pulaski Foundation. Thanks for coming in today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And thank you for watching World Talks here on TVP World. Much more coming up, so stay tuned. Goodbye.